Hello and welcome everyone to the official book launch of Paws Healing the Earth anthology, the first anthology of River Paw Press. It is a great pleasure to have our honored guests and contributors, beginning with our chief guest, Christopher Merrill, and our honored guests, Mellisa Studdard, Lee Upton, William O'Daly, Xanath Caraza, Amata Natasha Goldie, and Kalpna Singh-Chitnis. Before we begin the book launch, we want to introduce all our guests of honor, beginning with the chief guest, Christopher Merrill. Christopher Merrill has published 6 collections of poetry, including Watchfire, for which he received the LaVaughn Younger Poets Award from the Academy of American Poets, many edited volumes and translations, and 6 books of nonfiction, among them Only the Nails Remain, Scenes from the Balkan Wars, Things of the Hidden God, Journey to the Holy Mountain, The Tree of the Doves, Ceremony, Expedition, War, and Self-Portrait with Dogwood. His writings have been translated into nearly 40 languages. His journalism appears widely. His honors include a Chevalier des Arts et des Lettres from the French government, numerous translation awards, and fellowships from the John Simon Guggenheim Memorial and Ingram Merrill Foundations. As director of the International Writing Program at the University of Iowa since 2000, Merrill has conducted cultural diplomacy missions to more than 50 countries. He served on the U.S. National Commission for UNESCO from 2011 to 2018, and in April 2012, President Barack Obama appointed him to the National Council on the Humanities. It's a pleasure to have us with him today. Next, we have Mellisa Studdard. Mellisa Studdard is the author of the poetry collection I Ate the Cosmos for Breakfast and the chapbook Like a Bird with 1,000 Wings. Her work has been featured by PBS, NPR, The New York Times, The Guardian, and more. Her awards include the Lucille Medwick Award from the Poetry Society of America, the Penn Review Poetry Prize, and the Tom Howard Prize for Winning Writers. Next, we have Lee Upton. Lee Upton is the author of 14 books, including short story collections and volumes of poetry, literary criticism, and essays. Her most recent books are Bottle the Bottles of Bottles, Poems and Visitation Stories. Next up, we have William O'Daly. William O'Daly has translated 9 books of the poetry of Chilean Nobel laureate Pablo Neruda, the most recent a finalist for the 2018 Northern California Book Award in Translation. O'Daly's chapbooks of poems include The Road to Isla Negra, Waterways, a collaboration with J.S. Grosstein, and Yarrow and Smoke. We also have Xanath Caraza, writes for La Bloga, Seattle Escribe, SLC, and Monolito. For the 2018 International Latino Book Awards, she received first place for Lágrima Roja and Sin Preámbulos, Without Preamble, for the best book of poetry in Spanish, and best book bilingual poetry. Syllables of Wind received the 2015 International Book Award for poetry. Next, we have Amata Natasha Goldie. She is an Australian poet and author. Her compositions are woven around the central themes of love, unity, consciousness, and our eternal nature. She has written unpublished collections of spiritual poetry, prose, and soul affirmations. Last but not least, we have Kalpna Singh-Chitnis, an Indian-American poet, writer, and editor-in-chief of Life and Legends. Her works have appeared in notable journals like World Literature Today, California Quarterly, Indian Literature, Pyrenees Fountain, etc. She has authored 4 full-length books, and her poems have been translated into many languages. Her poetry collection, Bare Soul, was awarded the 2017 Naji Naman Literary Prize for Creativity. Her poems and translations have been included in several anthologies. A former lecturer of political science, Kalpna Singh-Chitnis holds a degree in film directing from the New York Film Academy and works as an independent filmmaker in Hollywood. Her forthcoming full-length poetry collection, Trespassing My Ancestral Lands, is in the making.
Now I would like to invite the founder and director of River Paw Press and editor of Paws Healing the Earth, Kalpna Singh-Chitnis, to introduce the anthology to the audiences and share with us what inspired Paws Healing the Earth.
Hi, everyone. It's an honor to welcome our distinguished guest, Christopher Merrill, Lee Upton, William O'Daly, Mellisa Studdard, Xanath Caraza, Amata, Natasha, Goldie, and all the audiences to the book launch of Paws Healing the Earth, the very first book of River Paw Press. I will be brief in my statement, as I have already gone over the details in my editorial note to share what inspired Paws Healing the Earth. However, I must mention that it all began with Troy, our family dog, a Lhasa Apso, who we rescued from the Orange Animal Shelter in the city of Orange, California, on this day, April 20th, in 2008. Troy was only 2 years old when we rescued him. He grew up as a child in my family. Had he been living today, he was going to celebrate his 15th birthday with us. However, the true nature of our existence is eternal, and we still feel the presence of Troy in our life that has inspired River Paw Press and its first poetry anthology, Paws Healing the Earth. I call Troy my canine teacher, as after rescuing him, I began to see my connection with the rest of the world and our natural environment at a much deeper level. This realization is the core belief of River Paw Press. With the publication of Paws Healing the Earth, we have carved a space for ourselves in a very competitive business, but not with the motivation to achieve commercial success only, but to create a community of environmentally conscious writers and poets who, by their work, inspire us to look at the world beyond the existence of humankind that sustains us and contributes to our happiness and overall well-being. Paws Healing the Earth is a modest effort to raise awareness about the environment and animal rights. The contributing poets, through their poems, discover the sacredness of our natural environment and honor all the animals who share the planet with us. Thanks to all contributing poets, editors, and our well-wishers who have made Paws Healing the Earth possible. We are thrilled to launch this book on the eve of Earth Day in the National Poetry Month. Happy birthday, Troy. Now, I want to invite our dear friend, the guest of honor, and a contributor of Paws Healing the Earth, Mellisa Studdard, to share her reflections on our anthology with our distinguished guests and audiences.
Thank you, Kalpna. So I just want to congratulate you and thank you for this anthology, as well as to congratulate the other poets and editors. In a world where default choices and normalized behaviors make it so easy to wreak havoc on the environment and its beings, while hardly even noticing what one has done, it's so important to have people who do pay attention to what they do and how they do it. People like you who make conscious choices about how to live and how to communicate and exist as citizens of this world. And it's important too to have people who are able to get others to slow down and think about their own lives and the impact that their choices have on other beings. And poetry in particular is a perfect vehicle to do this, to cultivate a heightened awareness through its attention to language. Though daily language can tell us that we need to become more mindful of how we treat other beings, such as our animal friends, poetic language can actually awaken us to that mindfulness in a different way by making the points through more vivid, through rhythm and figurative language, syntactical complexities. It allows us to not only communicate, but to implant new ideas about ways of being and thinking and acting, so that connections not readily available to the conscious mind are activated through this language. And we exercise the power of the imagination to direct us to new possibilities. So, Kalpna, I really want to thank you for being this kind of vehicle for us and an organizer of all of these important voices. To me, this anthology feels as much like a group prayer as it does like a book. And I look so forward to seeing the fruits of its messages. So now it is my great honor to invite Christopher Merrill to officially launch Paws Healing the Earth.
Yes, thank you so much, Mellisa, and thank you, dear Kalpna. I love the fact that this is being brought together by Kalpna's entire family. Her son and daughter are with us because our feelings for our dogs in our lives always stem from our family. So it's my great honor to officially present Paws Healing the Earth. Let's see where I'll get that. About that. Okay.
Yeah.
Can we see that? And I'm going to just remove this very beautiful Indian wrapping of this book that is something to hold and to treasure. So I'm going to have to move it aside for 1 second because so I'm going to pull. All right. So now I'm going to officially present Paws Healing the Earth. And all good things are difficult to take apart and present to the world. Here's this very beautiful book, Paws Healing the Earth.
Thank you, Chris.
And the thing I want to say about this book is the connection that Kalpna makes between a family dog and the environment seems to me to be that key connection, because as children, when we fall in love with our family dog, we are learning love for the animal kingdom. And this was borne home for me back in the early 1990s when I had the good luck over the period of 4 years to take care of the wonderful poet W.S. Merwin's house on Maui in Hawaii. Now, William had 4 chow chows, and these dogs were absolutely central to his life. He also had on these 19 acres of land that had been effectively destroyed by single crop planting, the pineappling of the island of Maui. And he had lovingly brought that land back to life, planting thousands and thousands of palms, many of which were either endangered or extinct in the wild. And the weeks that I would spend there every spring, oftentimes returning from reporting trips to the former Yugoslavia where I was covering the war, were the most important weeks of my life, with those 4 chow chows who had distinct personalities of their own, and in that place of luxurious splendor in the palms and the green and the sea. Some years before I went there, William and his wife Paula had undergone a kind of serious trauma, if you will, when one of their chow chows, whose name was Maoli, was kidnapped by somebody on the island. And William and Paula drove all over the island trying to find this beloved dog, wondering whether they would get him back before it was too late. Maoli is a Hawaiian word which means knowledge of the place, knowledge of the center of the universe. And as he was driving around the island trying to find Mowgli, he kept repeating to himself this, what became a kind of refrain, and it goes like this: I do not know where Mowgli is. The first lesson of being a poet is to always name your dogs well. So a dog named Mowgli will take on, that name itself will take on some resonance. And I wanted to close my part of the presentation by just reading this very beautiful poem by one of our greatest nature poets of all, W.S. Merwin, who combines in this poem his love of the dog, his feeling for the natural world, and some larger meditation, if you will, on our place in the great chain of being. It's called Search Party. By now I know most of the faces that will appear beside me as long as there are still images. I know at last what I would choose the next time, if there ever was a time again. I know the days that open in the dark like this. I do not know where Mowgli is. I know the summer surfaces of bodies and the tips of voices like stars out of their distances, and where the music turns to noise. I know the bargains in the news, rules, whole languages, formulas, wisdom that I will never use. I do not know where Mowgli is. I know whatever one may lose, somebody will be there who says what it will be all right to miss and what is wrong, verging on excess. I know the shadows of the house, roots that lead out to no traces, many of his empty places. I do not know where Mowgli is. You that see now with your own eyes all that there is as you suppose, though I would stare through broken glass and show you where the morning goes, though I could follow to their close the sparks of an exploding species and see where the world ends in ice, I would not know where Mowgli is. It seems to me that Paws Healing the Earth is an effort by poets from everywhere to give us a sense of how to be a part of that search party, how to find that kind of meaning that in its way can help us to heal the earth. So I give my great congratulations to Kalpna and to all the poets on sharing the stage with me today, and everyone in this fantastic anthology. I do not know where Mowgli is, but I do know where my own dog, Chai, is right now, and thankfully she's asleep.
Thank you, Christopher, for sharing those beautiful words. I want to thank you for launching the book and honoring us with your presence. I've had the personal honor of knowing Christopher as the director of the International Writing Program when I was a student at Between the Lines at the University of Iowa, and I'm eternally grateful for all that program had taught me. I'd like to now invite Leah Upton to share her thoughts on Paws Healing the Earth.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be part of this project and to be with so many remarkable poets. I think of poets advocating for animals. I think of how we're living in a time when animals are so imperiled through deforestation and wildfire and climate change and so many different threats. So I really want to congratulate everyone involved with the project. Reading through the anthology, I was struck by how many poems are elegies for animals and elegies for animals that are well known and well loved. And there was the sense of cherishing animals that really came off the page again and again. More than companions, these animals are inspirations, and we live interdependently among animals. Also, during the pandemic, of course, it's been a time when so many people who didn't have animals in their lives began to choose to bring animals into their lives and rescue animals. And animals, of course, gave so much comfort and individual healing during this time. The way that we've studied ourselves and endured isolation in so many cases. And we are, as always, indebted to them. And perhaps, especially now, the realization of our debt grows even stronger. So I want to thank everyone, thank River Paw Press who put the anthology together, and all of those who've praised and celebrated animals and the enduring respect we owe them. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee Upton. I loved what you said about tying it all together with how we see climate change today and how the pandemic has made us more attached to our animals. I really like that. So next up, we will invite William O'Daly to say a few words about Paws Healing the Earth.
Thank you so much, Nirvan. I actually would like to read a statement. I used Kalpna's kind invitation to write something I've been wanting to write for some time now. I think it's a beginning. As a small child, I manifested chronic asthma and allergies. Several years later, asthma kept me in the classroom or the nurse's station most lunch periods, where I played with my toy soldiers while my classmates played together in the schoolyard. I was allergic to dogs and more so to cats, in fact, to most animals. My first pet was a small lizard. I loved that lizard and enjoyed caring for him. But in truth, I found bonding with him less than satisfying. Soon I graduated to taking care of a rat with her short, light beige fur. I affectionately called her Cleo for Cleopatra, and we quickly got to know each other. Cleo would acknowledge my presence, which I appreciated. I would sit on the back patio, watch her run in her spinning wheel, and explore the cage she had explored untold times before. In my early teens, as I gained strength and the asthma began to recede, I learned to camp and hike. As an older teen and young adult, I would explore the southern Sierra Nevada. Taking breaks on the trail, I would silently watch chipmunks, deer, stellar jays, and once a black bear make their way, always mindful of their surroundings, always attentive. In my early 30s, my asthma and allergies were sufficiently under control that I was able to rescue a half coyote, half husky. I named her Araña, a Spanish word meaning timid or shy, and sometimes associated with wild animals. Araña taught me how hard it can be for an animal to integrate her wild and domesticated selves. Now I have an old dog, Annie, another rescue, who in her early years would explore our large meadow-like backyard when she wasn't streaking across it like a lightning bolt. Annie reminded me in her unceasing explorations of how I want to be, an individual who never abdicates beginner's mind. My beginner's mind was, in part, a lasting gift of asthma. Struggling to breathe, I often felt at the edge of life. I was struggling not just to be, but to become. I want always to retain that intuitive mind, the animal within. I value exploration at least as much as the knowledge I exploit to make things happen, to create outcomes, to build a career. The thing is, poets balance what they know with what they perceive as they become freshly attentive and listen closely to what comprises and composes the earth and our world. As the poem comes into being, the poet is at least as much intuitive animal as knowledgeable human being. For that, we must express our gratitude and preserve the courage to receive and perceive with clarity and sincerity. That is why Paws Healing the Earth, which celebrates the animals who bless our lives, is so necessary, and why we are celebrating it today.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you, William. I resonate with that in the sense that just as present as your animal is, we could learn something about being present with ourselves and see that there is no binary between animal and human. And I really enjoyed hearing your story. I would now like to invite Xanath Caraza to speak.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon, everybody. So thank you for the invitation. I'm really happy to be part of this anthology. And I'm going to read a little piece that I put together for today. Nahual, Animal Spirits. My maternal family roots are indigenous. Recognizing them and realizing that I am part of the great Mayan family awakens a burning fire within me. This stirring has made me rediscover our jade jungles, coastlines, and luminous quicksilver seas throughout eastern Mexico. Many archaeological sites have summoned me, and I have responded. The Mayan ancestors in Campeche have guided me to ceremonial centers in the middle of tropical jungles, surrounded importantly by horseflies, nauyaka serpents, butterflies, the smell of jaguar, and footsteps of fallen leaves. In response, I honor these sacred animals with my poetry. I join these creatures in song. The Olmec, Mayan, and Mexica Aztec civilizations have revered jaguars as mighty hunters and beings who are able to move between worlds, in and out of their surroundings with ease. Thus, shamans have conjured the jaguar spirit, Nahual, to coexist with their own, but as one. These shamans, guided by their Nahual animal spirits, were endowed with the vision and the skills to survive in two distinct worlds, to protect themselves from the evil of others, and to preserve that which is sacred. In Mesoamerican cosmology, the sacred hummingbird served as an avatar of the Mexica god Huitzilopochtli, in an image of the overflowing abundance and passion contained within the natural world. My poem Huitzil projects images of an unconquerable feminine. Hummingbirds move through the world with subtlety and are invoked by the poems themselves. Through their movement, hummingbirds are also considered the Holy Spirit of the pre-Hispanic, pre-contact cosmology. The beauty and spiritual strength of those pre-Hispanic sacred animals overwhelm me each time I recall them. I hope that the fallen leaves, Mayan gods and goddesses, the wind, the hummingbird, and the liquid serpent of jade accompany your steps on every one of these poems in Paws Healing the Earth anthology. Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you, Xanath. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I liked how you drew parallels to your ancestors and the ancient Mayan culture. I've researched a lot about that, and I find it very interesting. And you are a great fit for this anthology. Next, I will like to invite Amata, Natasha, Goldie to speak about the anthology.
It's an absolute honour to be here today and all the way from Australia. So I'm so grateful to be among such incredible esteemed poets. Gosh, it's been just the highest honour for me to be included. So thank you, Kalpna. It's a wonderful initiative. Something very dear to my heart, animals. Okay, so I'll just put together my connection with animals. Animals teach us everything that we seek to be as humans. Their presence is a gift of unconditional love, loyalty, compassion, devotion, joy, and peace. Those blessed to be a caretaker of these beloved souls are filled with loving kindness and appreciation for the immeasurable ways in which our fur children enrich our lives, filling our inner voids and helping us to evolve. Masters of saintly virtues, our furry teachers have come to heal us and our planet with their unique and sacred presence. I feel so blessed to be one of these caretakers, my home always enriched with the presence of cats and dogs, all rescue animals with supposed impediments. The runt of the litter, a fractured tail, vision impairment, hip dysplasia, and one with a very wild, untamable nature. But their personalities shone bolder and brighter than those human perceived flaws. Time and love are great healers. If only they lived as long as we. Time, true to their status as masters, they arrive in our lives, their souls overflowing with love and lessons to teach us. Their irreplaceable presence, however long or brief, leave us with a permanent paw prints upon our hearts, never to be erased by time or lapping waters upon a sandy shore. Kalpna has created such a powerful project in Paws Healing the Earth. It is exactly what the world needs right now. A return to the natural world and all the beautiful animals we are so blessed to share our lives and this planet with. Thank you.
Thank you, Amata.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank everyone for sharing their thoughts on Paws Healing the Earth. It's amazing how even before the domestication of animals, for thousands and thousands of years, animals have been humans' best friends. And in the world we live in today, it's very important to take that time to appreciate how essential domesticated and non-domesticated animals are to how this world functions, and we would not be able to live without these animals. And it's an honor to be here with all these poets. The way that you guys are able to, and it just reminds me how important it is to be present in my own life and appreciate the world around me, how important it is to be mindful and present like these animals.
And I agree. You know, we can easily get caught up in our day-to-day lives or mundane worlds. And I always look at, you know, my dog Hachi and how the smallest things can make him, you know, so happy. Those little things in life that you don't really, you know, think about normally, right? Just going on a walk, going on a run, you know, seeing a bird or a rabbit run by, right? It creates such a happiness within animals, and I think it's very important for humans to be connected with that, you know, childlike sense. So now we're going to move into the second part of the event, where all of our honored guests are going to read some of their great poems that was published in Paws Healing the Earth. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to go in alphabetical order. So we're going to start with Xanath, and she's going to read her poems that were published in the anthology.
Okay, all right. So my poems are Húmeda Sonrisa, Damp Smile, and Huitzil. And Huitzil means hummingbird in the language of the Nahuatl, in the Nahuatl language, the language of the Aztecs. Húmeda Sonrisa. Fresco sentir en la piel, húmeda sonrisa. Nace el vuelo del colibrí por primera vez. De la roca emerge el sonsonete matutino. Verde azul esperanza en los manantiales. La cristalina fuente refleja la luz del amanecer. Ahí bebe el delicado sueño junto al inmaculado floripondio. Con su pico corta las onduladas corrientes de densa agua. Damp smile. Cool sensation on skin, damp smile. The flight of the hummingbird is born for the first time. Early morning fluttering emerges from the rock. blue-green hope in natural springs. Crystalline fountain reflects early morning light, subtle dream embedding alongside immaculate angel's trumpet. He cuts the wavy currents of dense water with his beak. Huitzil. El diseño de las nubes comparte tus sueños. Suena melodía de aire en las frondas de la ceiba. Huelo el deseo del colibrí en la jungla de niebla. Huitzil, 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 Huitzil. Me susurra en luna llena los vientos del sur. Huitzil hincha sus pulmones de recuerdos y trina al ritmo de las hojas que se derraman en el río. Agua de montaña, remolinos y piedras llevan el aroma del colibrí en la corriente. No hay colibrí que dome los deseos en la selva. Guardado en el corazón, en oro líquido, está mi nombre. Designs of clouds share your dreams. Ring out melody of air. At the crown of the ceiba tree, I sense hummingbirds' desire in jungle mist. Huitzil, 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 whisper in full moon wind from the south. Huitzil inhales memories deep into his lungs and warbles to the rhythm of leaves that spill into the river. Water from the mountain, whirlpools and stones carry the scent of the hummingbird on its current. No hummingbird can tame the desire of the jungle, preserved in the heart, in liquid gold, is my name. Gracias.
Thank you very much. That was very beautiful. And we'd also like to thank the translator of the book of these poems, Sandra Kingdry, who can't be here today, but she encapsulated all the beautiful imagery and theme of the poem. Next, we would like to invite, next in ABC order, Amata Goldie to share her poems that were published.
Thank you so much. Okay, so the first poem is called, it's actually about the Australian bushfires that we had. You once were many. You once were many, but now you are few. Now you are refugees in your own land. Your families were lost as you fled. Your forests burnt to the ground as the winds howled, carrying the screams of death throughout your once green paradise. You are our furry friends, our feathered friends, our scaly and winged creatures. You dwell in the native bushland of Australia, keeping the balance of the ecosystem, tending to your families, fleeing from predators. But now blackened bush, like sticks of charcoal, are the remnants of your homeland, and whole generations of species are no longer. Stolen by the tsunami of the fires that spread relentlessly, and those that remain have become refugees in their own land that once supported life. Once there was a symphony of cicadas and birdsong, and a gentle rustling through the bush as the furry friends made their way through. Now there are no animal homes, no nests for the birds, no branches for the koalas, no greenery for the kangaroos, no food and no peaceful place to rest upon. The elders know this land, a sacred connection unbroken. But this ancient knowledge is not consulted by the laws of the West. And 46 million acres were burnt, and 1 billion animals were lost. And fires burned not for days or weeks, but months. And we as a nation mourned your loss. You are our winged, scaly, furry and feathered friends. You once were many, but now you are few. The second poem is called The Feline Teacher. And this one is dedicated to my beloved feline teacher, Tibet. How many lifetimes have I lived to reach this feeling? How many times have I looked through different eyes with the same soul? And each time the eyes have seen further and opened wider, until the distant horizon is reached in only a blink, and voyages of lifetimes into the realm of yesterday. I see infinity in your eyes, and a mystery that defies all understanding. You are the embodiment of a world beyond worlds, yet you dance in the eternal moment with your playful innocence. You teach me the art of being and of playing, of living in the ever new moment, to tiptoe in twilight and frolic in the morning light. How many lifetimes have you lived, beloved, to teach me this in your unconditional ways? How many times have you lovingly taught the same lessons so that we may all be free? And each time it is your own eyes that have truly seen, and it is your own heart that has opened wider, until the suffering and sorrow of humanity is no more. And in those eternal moments of your love, the whole planet is healed.
Thank you very much for sharing your beautiful poems with us. Next up, we'd like to invite Christopher Merrill to read his book, a poem from the book.
Thank you, Nirvan. I mentioned W.S. Merwin in my opening remarks. He was proud of how smart his chow chows were. And by way of contrast, the two Samoyeds I've had, he liked to say of them that their motto was never forget, never learn. So this is two Samoyeds. Here's little Latte, queen of Java, eating pate, eating lava. She's white and browned with eyes like coal. Her tail is wound up in a scroll. She bites our ears and chews our toes, a pair of shears on pantyhose. She barks and jumps, piddles and poops, and then she humps the nightstand, whoops. And when she sleeps, she dreams of cats and chimney sweeps and cricket bats. But once awake, she licks our faces. Oh, for God's sake, off to the races. Queen Cappuccino is no more. Her days of sprawling on the floor and chasing cats to the ravine, then howling at a TV screen, came to an end on New Year's Eve. What a good dog. It's time to leave. The nights of sleeping on her back, paws twitching in her dreams of black cats trapped in a mulberry bush, and the quiet child who liked to brush her thick white coat smoother than silk, have gone the way of all our ilk. What remains? Tufts of fur, her collar, tags, and leash, one pig's ear, this dollar, which may define the year to come in grief and memory, the sum of what we saw once here below, a puppy playing in the snow. I wrote that on New Year's Eve, just as the year 2020 was about to be upon us, and had I been more prescient, I would have realized that having to put our beautiful Samoyed to sleep was just the beginning of what I think all of us would agree was a pretty terrible year, but now we have this fantastic anthology of poems, Paws Healing the Earth. And we have a new puppy named Chai. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Next up, we have William O'Daly.
Thank you, Nirvan. Both of these poems come from the experience of backpacking, and both were inspired directly by a painting, each their own painting. And the music was in part refined by rehearsing with the Dave Brubeck Jazz Quintet. while we performed these the first time they were read. Bears in autumn. Whose eyes cool among the flames? What is this hunger, the calm roiling the pond, refusing to burn with the thicket, like the names of those forgotten? They are excited, the young bears, heads emerging, swimming with the white and blue currents of beginning. They leave the forest, the cave of white light, no longer underground. Mama trudges because she must, protecting, helpless. We stare at them, see what they want us to see. Could the Big Dipper be anything but a dipper? But to the Romans, it was bear or 7 plowing oxen. And now to the Europeans, Ursa of the hour is a plow. They say a trinity of bears still rules over the earth. But can we be certain they share one body? Could it be ours? We burn with the same conviction, our faces open as we pick up the axe and go about our Father's business. Heron dances over the world. Even you're not watching, where as you spread your black tattered wings and step among the colors of the physical world. Spindly legs conjure the symbol for infinity in red earth, in fresh blue snow and white mist. Endangered islands bloom. The wetland fills with mountain shadow. In a parallel universe, your reflection moves to its inner calling, to folded granite, music of the waterfall. You live as hidden origami, with creases and abandon, intricate patterns that resist the receding shore. You circle, an equation neither eyes nor lips can touch, motion that can't be solved or written on the tongue. You do not stop to preen among the battered dunes. Your cry rings iron from irony, recalls the silent bells, laments the love I've forgotten. You breathe closer to the swaying aspen than to the orphaned moon and the tide's pull. In this dance, you create, like a beetle, your own being.
Great. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. That was very powerful. I would like to now invite Lee Upton to read.
Thank you so much. And I've really enjoyed everyone's readings so very much. My poem draws from a story from Greek mythology, a story about the satyr Marsyas. And as a satyr, of course, most representations will show him with the legs of a goat and perhaps the ears of a goat or horns. He's often thought of as a kind of human animal, non-human animal hybrid. In the story that the poem references, there's a competition between Marsyas and Apollo. Marsyas challenges Apollo to a musical contest. Marsyas plays a reed instrument, and Apollo, of course, plays the lyre. In most versions of this story, Marsyas he always loses the contest, but in some versions, he actually wins and Apollo cheats. The story then that the poem draws from is so much about jealousy and ambition, certainly. It's also about music, but I think the thread throughout it is so much reflecting on suffering and animal suffering, and also extinction, which is in some ways impossible to fully imagine because it's an absence. So I'm going to read for you The Persistence of Torture. The dog violet, pressing a flat ear to the ground, has news of great importance. It is spring, and jealousy turns its blade again. First a prick at the neck and another nick, and then Marsyas's eyelids are peeled, so he can't help but see as they flay the fur off him and pull down the map of his body and curry his skin into a canal. Steam hisses off the oiled husks of him. What do the executioners expect to find unwrapping their prize? They take their time slitting his groin, calling him a woman and laughing. The blood rains into the storm blue eye of the violet. They work at his thighs until the flesh slides to his ankles like a stocking. His hooves dance in the sloughed off rind. There are jokes, even as the onrush from what's loosened gives, as if a musician must be poured from a kettle, but first scalped, grated, scraped into paste. Oh, he's bled, he's dressed like a doe in a shed, until saddles of his own skin surround him. Thus, the satyr became human, as did his torturers, as did music. Every spring, the dog violet shrinks closer to the earth, once again washed in the thundercloud of Marsyas's body, and so the violet turns humble, spreading its kind across the grounds to escape the punishment for making beauty humiliate a power that won't be humbled, skinless to be human, to break membranes, fear wiping its hands over our eyes, and now so many silences, those we can't hear and those we try not to hear, and those beneath what's heard. In some myths, a reed or laurel or blossom fills to the brim with a soul. In this story, silence pours into silence, and silence turns into music made of silence. What will hold the dog violets back this year? A scout has broken from the ranks. The leaves flicker with Marsyas. He was an animal like us. The extinct, those that no longer bend down the grasses or the treetops or curl in a wave or draw their roots into the soil. Marsyas and his kind are extinct. Apollo is extinct. Beside the limestone quarries, the cry violets once lifted their lavender-colored faces. The cry violets are extinct. The earthly music of the extinct, those wild beings skimmed off the earth, scoured, the blade so thin and the scald in the encyclopedia of the extinct. And in human music, that silence, the satyr skin drying, tacked to a pine, the tattery flag of the extinct. He was not our savior, not a traitor either. We can only try to imagine Marsyas's music, his gift. We are his skin now, his animals, his herd. That music, the wound in the dog violet, the stillness there, as if whatever thing that lives in silence witnesses how living skin is thrashed wild with misery. It is always happening, the persistence of torture, the extinguished music, the ones made strange to us, skimmed off the earth. The grass turns gray, the decayed trees creak like wicker. Executioners stand back to admire their work. Wasps crawl across a tender body, a body made infinitely more tender in sunlight, the heart still beating. Some traditions hate us. What do we call those who went ahead, our scouts, the extinct? They didn't ask to be named. Now we know them only as words. Marsyas, revolutionary, belongs to us and the other animals. The animals of ourselves listen for his flaying, the blade pressing up against every shape his mouth makes. 1,000 traps cannot snare the spring, or close his raining eyes, or stop the wind to the pines howling. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a very powerful poem I read, and even more powerful when I heard it. I accidentally went out a little bit out of order, but at this time, we'll now have Mellisa Studdard read her poems. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody's poems have been so beautiful and so powerful. Thank you. I want to actually dedicate this reading to my cat, Henry. He died the day that this anthology came out, and it was just the most amazing blessing to me to receive this anthology later that day and sort of feel somewhat consoled through what felt inconsolable. So thank you for all of your poems and sort of helping me through my grief with Henry. He was a gorgeous tabby cat with little white paws, and think about him every day. So this first poem is called Tour of Grief. And you all may remember that there was an orca who carried her calf for 17 days after the calf died, and over like 1,000 miles. And the scientists were calling the journey the Tour of Grief, and that was referenced frequently in news sources. So, Tour of Grief. All 17 days the orca wore her dead like a crown, sorrow riling to a bob and weave, knocking her hollow. What water and womb could no longer carry, she had to carry. We watched through binoculars as if distance were real, as if we were not also tottering on the head of an exhausted, grieving mother, as if we were not also becoming too cumbersome, too heavy to bear. The next poem is called Because Death Bolts Illuminate the Wonderstorm. My first two poems are sad, and I have one more after this that's not sad. Because Death Bolts Illuminate the Wonderstorm. Cruel the highway that took the dogs. I've seen its shoulders convulse gently in the crying of nightfall. The way a teenaged girl can be both vicious and vulnerable. It doesn't like what it has done, and I don't like to say it. Sometimes I hold a kaleidoscope to my beloved's eye and ask him to never look at anything again but me. How can I trust a world that hasn't yet honored the softness in his pupil? Is it possible to protect those we love, to protect anyone? I plant plum trees in his heart. I devour his fruits to the pit. Love is sometimes a stay against insanity. The dogs, it was my fault. Trying to help, I scared them into the rush. I live it over and over, the way a body can spill like sunlight from its skin. And the final poem is called There's a Brightness Folded into Every Bird. And this is a poem that's based on Attar's Conference of the Birds. And if you're familiar with that, there are 7 valleys. And this is based on the Valley of Quest. And it's a group of birds that are flying and seeking their spiritual leader. And in the book, they're independent and interdependent at the same time. So they're like a single bird, but they're also multiple birds all at the same time. There's a brightness folded into every bird, but the bird doesn't know it. The bird is 30 birds who soared out of dreaming to invent sky. 30 birds flying in the formation of a bird. God tells them, open, O moonbeak, O silver black, O sliver of luck. And the bird says, break me until I'm whole. God says, empty, and the bird spills a splendor of jewels from their 30 beaks into the valley. Don't think I'm a diamond, God says, find me, and hands the bird a map back to the inside of its own bone, then disappears. But the bird doesn't understand the question. 30 birds split into 1,000 that search under everything: stone, fabric, sun face, gold, until they find no God. Now the beak yells, "Take me, I have no reason." And an arch of wing lifts sun up towards the light. And a thump under the chest answers yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm very sorry to hear about your recent loss.
Oh, thank you.
Last but not least, we'll have my dear mother, Kalpna Singh-Chitnis, read her poems from Paws Healing the Earth.
Thank you, Nirvan. Before I read my poem, actually I want both my children to read one of their favorite poems from the book about their own pet or the animals we wanted to pet, but we couldn't. So first, I want to invite Vishwa to read a poem, and then Nirvan before I read my own poem. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. The poem I'm going to read is called Red Fox Family. Do you hear the sound of snow falling? The wind whispers into her fuzzy ears. She opens her eyes a little and closes. The fur balls tucked under her belly suck the nectar of life, keeping one another warm in a narrow den. Do you hear the sound of her baby's breath? I ask the winter and snowflakes. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishwa. Now I want to invite Nirvan to read a poem.
So just a little bit of a prequel to, who Hachi is. So it's one of my favorite poems from this book because, he's still my living dog and I'm very attached to him. And we wrote it for our German Shepherd Hachi. He was rescued off the streets of Oakland when my brother was going to college in San Francisco. And Hachi is referring to the legendary Japanese Akita dog, Hachiko. There's a legend behind him. Hachi waited at a train station for years after his owner died at work of cardiac arrest. And he waited at that train station through heat, snow, rain, or shine, and really showed his exceptional love and loyalty. So this book, Naming, is by my mother, Kalpna Singh-Chitnis. The day you arrived, it was the night before Christmas. You were a gift from Santa for being good to your kind. You had come to me nameless, loveless. Mother had abandoned you, and those who owned her had abandoned you twice. How could a mother be so callous? She didn't look for her pups. Was she sadder than you were? How could you possibly know? You were too young to understand. Shivering in the winter rain, hungry and alone, you were found under a truck. At least, this is what I was told. Your siblings weren't found. They were taken. You were the runt of the litter. No one wanted you. Precious diamond, you were meant for me. The destiny had dragged you to me by its chain, collarless, hurting in the pain of neglect, right when my hands were ready to cradle another life. Cooing in agony, you sat in my lap, nipped my finger while feeding you bread. But I wasn't upset. I knew you were sad, hungry for love, thirsty for milk, dripping from your mother's breast. But your tongue, so young and tiny, was unable to latch from afar. You licked my hands profusely. Your anxiety was nothing but a desire heightening with the pain of separation. But she wasn't supposed to come back. You had to learn to live with your pain, same as he did, waiting in heat and frost, rain and storms, year after year. Watching the trains come and go at a station, for someone never to arrive. I could see his reflections in your eyes, living a pain over again, melting in sorrow, silently in my hands, like him, in Earth's lap, on a stormy night, covered in snow. He extinguished like a candle, lit in you now. I pull a warm blanket for you in a hurry. I split in pain thinking of him and kiss you. I shed the tears you couldn't. I erase the years no one should ever wait for anyone, and named you Hachi. Thank you.
Thank you, Nirvan, for so beautifully reading my poem. I don't think I could have done any better job than you have done. Thank you so much. Before I read my poems, I want to share a few words. I wish all the contributing poets were here today to share their works from Paws Healing the Earth. But we have the limit of only 10 people who can join us in the conference in StreamYard. So we have, before beginning this event, we have put out a trailer singing in praise of all our poets who are part of this anthology. And I very much wanted Robert Pinsky and Jennifer Reeser to be part of this event, but for personal reasons, they couldn't join us. To honor poet Robert Pinsky, first of all, I'm going to read his poem, Door, and one poem by Jennifer Reeser. Door. The cat carries for me from the other side. It is beyond her to work this device that I open and cross and close with such ease when I mean to work. It's 4 panels from across the rude gatepost of redemption. The rod, a dividing pike or pale, mounted and hinged so to swing between one way or place and another meal. Between the January vulva of birth and the January of death's door, there are so many to negotiate. Closed or flung open or ajar, valves of attention. O kitty, if the doors of perception were cleansed, all things would appear as they are, infinite. Coming, darling, drowse comfortably near my feet. I will click the barrier closed again behind you. Oh, sister will, fellow mortal, here we are. Now, a small poem by Jennifer Reeser. The title of this poem is The Mockingbird. And this is actually the traditional Acoma Pueblo song translated by Jennifer Reeser. Morning comes and mockingbird speaks and sings. Mornings, mockingbird is singing, speaking, songs for the benefit of human beings. Mockingbird, mockingbird, regularly singing songs for the benefit of humankind. Now, my poem. The first poem is for Troy. Troy, who inspired this book. The title of this poem is Epiphany. And the last poem I will read, which gave the title to this book, Paws Healing the Earth. Epiphany for Troy. If I were to trust my intuition, you were the hunter cougar I fed my flesh to as a novice monk. In nighttime, we went on the same track, one looking for food and the other for water in a perennial forest, our home, on the edge of Siam and Myanmar. It had been a century, I had almost forgotten, but you remembered to return, printing your paws on the trail we had left behind, following the imprints subtle in our minds to redeem. Your eyes burning with compassion like lanterns lit in the darkest of night kept me warm until the day you melted away in the flux of our tears. In a deep sea that no one can fathom but you and me, I see you lying on the bed like a luminous pearl in blue light, sleeping in the shell of my memories. And the last poem, Paws Healing the Earth. It all comes back like a cascade flowing. No one forgets the way back home. The beauty of the wild isn't the flowers and trees alone. More, it is the scent of the forest. Walking from the trails to the cliffs, from the den to the river, I find my footprints everywhere. On the rocks, in the mud and dusty trails, my handprints stamped on the trees wave me from a distance. The vision blurs, but the time does not fade anything. How many times I have climbed to the top and fallen to perish, only to rise again. The memories surface like white clouds form in turquoise blue sky. The moon rises on the pale dune, and my spirit howls. Welcome back, the animals weep in joy. O eternal me, I have returned home. My feet are paws healing the earth. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very beautiful. And this concludes the event. I would like to thank all of our contributors here today, William, Xanath, Christopher, Mellisa, Lee, my sister Vishwa, Amata, and my mother Kalpna. You can find the book that we're presenting today, Paws Healing the Earth, on any online major retailers, or you could go to River Press and find it there. We'd also like everyone anyone watching to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook for the updates. On our YouTube channel, we're going to be having videos in the future of all the contributors reading their poem from Paws Healing the Earth, and we'll compile that and release those in the future. So if you're interested in that, we do recommend you do subscribe and ask for notifications whenever those videos are published.
Thank you all.